have. Oh shit.
It's like a TED Talk. Man, big time.
This is so. Come on.
Good call, dude.
Hello.
Hello!
So I've come here today to talk about something really near and dear to my heart. It has a lot to do with this time of year, the fall, the seasons changing.
Christmas?
Now, close. It could be
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. It could be. But it's not. It's actually something probably near and dear to all of your hearts. It's college football. I want to talk to you about college football because I've been doing a lot of looking into it, and I'm sure you have, and it confuses you. Things like the BCS, things like rushing the field, etiquette, things like that. For those of you who don't know, that John alluded to earlier, the BCS, it's this organization that determines who the national champion is at the end of each year. It's been going on for a while, but it's a big shitstorm. Unlike other sports, professional sports, that determine the winners on the field or in the ring or even on the courts, the BCS determines the winner through some elaborate scheme of voting and magic numbers with computers. Oh, look at that.
Your windows scratched?
No, that's good. So for the longest time, people have been asking for a playoff system, and the BCS has refused. They say it can't be done, things with excuses such as the cheerleaders need time off, they can't afford to send bands to play playoffs all the time, and this ends up just being this huge shitstorm of excuses that no one really buys. Now, let me explain the BCS's criteria a little bit. It's a lot like Dancing with the Stars. They'll judge you on how well you perform, and the judges are coaches and as well as sports writers. So what ends up happening is that coaches are generally too busy to really care about who should be first, who should be second. They're worried with who they're playing this week, who they played last week. That's all they really know. Oh, look at that. The second part of it is math. They've hired a bunch of mathematicians to figure out algorithms that would explain who the best team is, and this is all really hypothetical situation type things. They don't look into things that are important to us like margin of victory and strength of schedule. And the third factor is the Illuminati, as well as the skulls and bones, which will show up later on. But as we all know, the Illuminati runs the world, including the BCS. So the BCS as we know it started back in 1998, the year that iMac came out, very important to some of you people. And it was a little, sort of, it's been an experiment in trying to determine who the best is. But the original inception of this came in 1992, where a group of 5 conferences. Now, a conference is a group of teams. The country has 11 conferences, but this group of 5 decided to say, hey, we're going to determine who the best is. And that's because up until then, the only way to determine was through the two folds. You had the judges of the coaches, and then you had the judging from the sports writers. Now, at the end of the season, they would go, hey, this team should be the best, or this team should be the best. And once in a while, they would come together and agree. Well, most of the time they would, but once in a while, they would actually split the decision, which would be just craziness for anyone to understand, because how can a sport have 2 champions? You have 1 champion. You know, in wrestling, you have the world heavyweight champion and the intercontinental. That's like second place, but there's still just 1 champion. So this group of 5 conferences plus Notre Dame would get together, and then they would say, hey, let's determine the best 2, and the best 2 should be the champion. Well, that doesn't really work because you've got 5 conferences deciding this. There are 11 conferences. You're leaving out 6. Just the math doesn't add up. Math. It doesn't add up. And most of the time, like I said, the judges wouldn't see eye to eye. You have these, like one year, USC was supposed to be the champion, but also Nebraska was supposed to be the champion. And so it's like, this is crazy. Why don't we just take it on the field? Just settle it. Math, once again, doesn't equal up. So let me explain. These are the 11 current groups right now. You have the ACC, the Big East, the Big 10, the Big 12, the SEC, and the Pac-10. Those are considered the Big Six, the major six. The lower division guys, Conference USA, MAC, Mountain West, Sun Belt, and WAC.
Sun Belt.
Exactly. They get shafted a lot of the time, as New York here would know. As well as you play, you're always going to be looked down upon. It's this really unfair system, and the system was set up by the upper six. And so exactly, they're not going to allow the plebeians to join their level. And this has a lot to do with money. So leaving the 5 considered lower conferences out, you have these Big Six. And how did these Big Six come about? It was the SEC, the Southeast Conference. Now, they alone started this whole shenanigan that we call the BCS, the SEC, football, with teams that come from states such as Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina, and Arkansas. What do these schools have in common? Aside from being in the Southeast Conference? Anyone?
They all get funding from the same place.
Yes! They're all red states. So, how does this tie in? Okay, we're looking at a map of the 2008 election. That doesn't matter, because Florida there is blue, and it doesn't matter. What we really care about with the current inception of the BCS is the 2004 election. Anyone remember that one?
Yeah, I do.
Exactly.
I do.
Remember how screwed up that was?
I do.
Exactly. This has a lot to do with that. Anyone know Karl Rove?
Yeah.
Exactly. So why does this matter to us? Why do all the red states want to control little old college football? Because the red states have lost control of baseball. Major League Baseball is now considered a liberal elite sport.
Kenyan sport.
It has a lot to do with New York, Boston, also the East Coast, the West Coast. San Francisco just won.
That's because they
World
win.
Series. Yes.
Go SF.
Now, basketball has been lost to the urban cities. We have LA, New York, Chicago, Miami. They run it.
New York
So-
sucks. They don't make any money.
Well, that's true. But, I mean, those are the major markets. So what's left? We have football. But American football, not international football. And who runs football? The mafia. Las Vegas runs professional football. Everyone agrees with that, so I don't have to explain that. So what's left? College football. College football is the only sport left where the sense of urgency throughout the season exists. And because of this, the SEC has zeroed in on it and to determine the amount of money that is available through college football. An example here is the bowl season. Bowls is what the money comes from. These schools make money from these bowls. Between 2007 and 2009, $410 million was paid out to teams who participated in these bowls. So if your school goes to a bowl, you get money. If you win a bowl, you get even more money. The bigger the bowl, the more money you get. With the major bowls, you'll get $5 million. The smaller bowls, you'll get $100,000. So, of this $400,000, 355 million went to the Big Six conferences. That means 86% of that money went to 65 schools, including the SEC, the ACC, pretty much all the red states. Now what happens to the rest of the money? 55 million goes to the rest of the schools. Now, the interesting thing about this is the rest of the schools, the other conferences, a good majority is in the West, in the blue states. Now, Why do we want to keep money away from the blue states? Duh, because we want to keep it for ourselves. We need our programs to have money. A school like Boise State only spends $6 million on their football program a year. A school like Alabama in the SEC spends up to $30 million a year. Right now, Alabama is ranked 12th. Boise State is ranked 3rd. If Boise State were to spend the same amount of money as Alabama, who knows what would happen. But the crazy thing is, Boise State is in the WAC, one of the lower fives. And because of that, they will never play for the national championship because they would earn too much money and too much credibility, which would ruin and implode the BCS system. So why do you care? You probably don't. You're in LA. USC. USC is LA's pro team. An example of this East Coast bias against the West Coast is true on many levels. In the 2003 to the 2004 season, in both human polls, USC was number 1. But through the magic of computers, the BCS had them at number 3. That left Oklahoma and LSU, both red states, LSU being Louisiana State, to play in the national championship. That means the blue state gets no money and no respect. Same thing happened again in 2004-2005. Texas beat or lobbied to be in the Rose Bowl when Oregon should have been in the Rose Bowl. Oregon, once again, a blue state. And then you say, hey, but USC has won a national championship. How? That's real simple. This is where it gets really interesting. How did USC get into the national championship game when there's this huge East Coast bias against West Coast schools? That's simple. This person. The best person on their team was Reggie. Anyone recognize this guy? He's running back. He now plays for New Orleans. Reggie here, has the same last name as the guy next to him, Bush. So, what can we do about this? Nothing. What can you go out there and change the mind of the BCS? No. But you know what you can do right now? Those of you here and at home, you can donate to a good cause so that we, as artists, can go and retire and make art and watch college football.
Yeah!
Wow.
Mind blowing.
That was really enlightening. Thank you, Fatima.
You're welcome.
I had no idea.